Hello everyone, welcome to the Geoecologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on physical geography and geomorphology on my channel. So before we go ahead, in today's session, let's understand that we are going to learn about one of the most important theories, that is about concept and theories of slope development. But before we go ahead, please like and subscribe to our channel and don't forget to share the videos with others as well. So now let's learn about the theories of slope development. Already in the previous lectures, we have discussed in detail the concept of Davis cycle of erosion, Penck's concept of morphological changes, and also the pediplanation, that is by L.C. King. So we already know lots of concept about the evolution and development of slope. So in this session, we are going to discuss in detail these concepts and theories just in context to this slope. So slope development is important part of geomorphology and landscape development. So let's understand the concept of slope and what are the theories associated to it. So in 1590s, this word slope came to the common parlance and the meaning was to go in an oblique direction. So that was important. Oblique is what basically is slanting. So this word slanting is what we associate with this slope that is coming here. And then in further description, what we say is that to be in a slanting position or placed in a slanting position was further now discussed in the beginning of 18th century in various theories. So understanding slope process is of particular interest to whom? To land use planners these days. In current scenario, mostly the land use planners, these town planners, the architects or the engineers, they are interested in knowing that what is the degree of slope, what is the gradient, what is the slope characteristic, what is the slope strength. Why? Because they have to construct roads along that slope or maybe a building. So all those things become important. So because slopes often reflect changes in lithology. Now remember, from looking into a particular slope or observing or studying a slope, we can understand the lithology of that area. That how uniform or non-uniform is the lithology, how it had developed, what are its characteristics, how strength is there, how weakness is there. So all those things are important while we understand the slope. That's why the study of slope development is important, not just in geomorphology, but for its general practicable purpose. So first thing that we need to understand is here slope formation. So how these slopes form? So slopes can be genetically characterized into primary slopes and secondary slopes. So on the basis of genetic, that is origin, so first slopes that develop are called primary and further after this what develop is called secondary slopes. So primary and secondary slopes are important and secondary slopes evolve from the erosion and modification of these primary slopes only. So this is what we have already studied through the concept of Davis, Penck, L.C. King. So the distinction is not always clear because primary and secondary process do not operate independently. The catch is here that remember primary slopes or secondary slopes because they are part of the same system. So initial slope again erodes, changes happen, forms the next, that is the consequent slope, that is called secondary slope, and then that is again going to the further changes. So it is primary for the next one. So it is a cycle of these slopes that keeps happening. So remember that is important because denudational processes keep operating in nature. So that's why it is important. Now, it's important to understand to what degree a slope is the resultant of primary and secondary processes. So that is why we have to understand these processes. And remember, many slopes are also known as paleo slopes. Paleo is a word which is often used in geological time scale, as you know. So paleohistory, so Paleozoic. So paleo is basically ancient, the most important, the most ancient. So that is what we understand, that what was there in the past and from which it has evolved. So those particular slopes which are in comparison of today's slopes, very ancient remnants, those are known as paleo slopes as well. Now, the slope's shape, what we say, the morphology part is here, is governed by its internal structure and external process. Remember the Penck's concept? The ratio between endogenetic and exogenetic process, this is what we are talking about. That not just external process. So if you look at these mountains, what is happening here? There are different kinds of slopes. This is a different angle, this is a different angle, this is a different angle. So different kinds of angles are there. And why is it so? Remember, it's not just about external factors acting on this. It's also about its own material. It's also about the endogenetic process according to which this received or gained a particular height. So it is a ratio between these two processes. That is why a particular slope has a particular shape. That is important. Then material deposited while in transit down the slope is called collovium. Remember, in the L.C. King's concept, we have learned about pediments. Those pediments are what? These are the collovium material. These are the collovium, what you say, all these depositions. And remember, that is why it is important in pediplanation cycle as well. So these sediments derived from the upper slopes. So this is the crest, right? This is the free slope. Then we have this collovial material coming down and depositing here. So that is what we say, that this is the entire process that keeps the shape of the slope. Now let's talk about the factors for the origins of primary slopes. What are the factors? The first important factor is the endogenetic factor. We know that tectonic factors, the fault happening, folds happening. Then depositional factor is another factor, that material comes from within volcanoes or glacial movements bring material. Drumlinoid topography, dunes, alluvial fans, all these things we have studied in the denudation chronology. If you have not watched those lectures on denudation processes, please you can go to the playlist and you can watch it. So we have discussed about all these depositional processes, also the erosional process, that is glacial and riverine valleys creation, right? So how erosion happens, how deposition happens. So this is what we say as endogenetic process. These two are what we understand as exogenetic, coming from outside. And then as human beings, you remember Anthropocene. So human activity is also important nowadays, because blasting of rocks and hydraulic mining, tailing piles, all these things lead to another changes or development of further slopes. So these are the important factors here. So endogenetic, exogenetic and anthropogenic factors. So that is where it is important here to remember that anthropogenic factors are equally important these days in changing or developing a morphology of slope, as important as endogenetic as well as exogenetic. Now, the next question that we need to discuss is this question: how process affects slope morphology? So how these processes operate, as we have learnt about the factors. So let's understand them. So mass movement and morphology. Let's understand this first factor, the first process. So mass movement, as we know, this is important as denudational process, as exogenetic process. And how does it shape the morphology? So now remember, creep, as we have learned, the slow mass wasting movement. So it leads to development of convex upward slope segments. Solifluction, slumps, flows commonly result in concave upward profiles at their heads and convex toes of collovium. So that is important. Then rock fall forms a talus. So scree slope that is deposited, and remember, beneath a free face. So this is a free face, and what we see here is this particular deposition which is coming down here. So this is talus. So slope of talus. Now this angle which is here, the slope of talus, this particular slope, remember, this is what is deposited in the fans. So this is dependent upon what? Angularity of sediment. That, remember the shape, how angular is the sediment. If it is a fluvial area, then it will be rounded. If it is a glacial area, then it will have edges. So rate of rockfall versus rate of weathering and erosion of talus. So this is also not stopped here. This is also further eroded, right? And rate of further weathering is important as usual, as rate of rockfall is important. Pediment surfaces that lack significant debris beneath the free face develops because talus is weathered and removed faster than it produces. So what happens? If this material which is coming from here, it is very slow and this is weathered very fast. So this rate is slow and this is fast. This is removed further and this is still to come. So this area still becomes empty. So this is what we remember, that pediment surfaces lack significant debris beneath. Now remember, they form this particular free face slope as well, because if this particular place is now devoid of these talus, so this looks like a free face at the bottom. So this is what is talked as the significant influence of mass wasting on morphology of these slopes. Second factor is effects of water. So fluvial process, remember, surface flow, so overland, slope wash, channel flow, these are important, that aid the development of concave upward profiles in valleys and convex upward profiles along the divides, as we already know. So remember, this is convex and this is concave, so don't get confused. This is convex and this is concave. Now you can relate to it. Now subsurface flow, that is downward percolation. Subsurface is important. Through flow, groundwater flow, these are important. So what happens? Remember, alluviation, that is what we see, it is the nutrients or minerals going beneath the surface. Then aids in formation of earth flows, solifluction. So this flowage type, remember fast flowage type, this is triggered by this particular effect of water. It may lead to surface channel formation by piping, sapping. So what happens? There is a particular slope where water enters here, it goes below and finally comes out of some other place. So this sapping and piping process keeps happening. This is how the underground channel keeps developing. So this is also important, but here it also depends upon the porosity of the rock or permeability of the rock material. So this is what the action of water is, how it affects the slope. Then the most important factor here again what we learn is the geological factor. So which is composition structure that is largely dependent upon how the geology is. So in geology, the first important thing is rock slopes. So remember, rock slopes has these characteristics: rock strength, structure, fall faces, right? So what is rock strength? It is basically how hard it is, how easy it is for the external factors to erode. So that is all about strength. Structure is its orientation, bedding planes, joints, which we have learned. And fall faces are basically what? They are that particular steep or particular surfaces what you see here, observe. So slope developed on horizontal sedimentary rocks in Grand Canyon are good examples to explain. So you can observe here what kind of slopes have developed over ages. So what you see here is, apart from this deep valley what runs here, you have several slopes. One is this particular slope, what we say is debris or pediment slope. Then you have this free slope, then you have the next one, then you have this particular one. So different layers, what you say is these particular steps. Remember, Trippin concept happening. So this is what is there, different free fall faces. So it all depends upon how strong is actually the slope in relation to the external factors acting upon this. Then the second part is the soil slopes. Now there are certain slopes, because they have soil control, they don't have hard rock surfaces, so permeability is there. So what happens? Their shape is controlled by these processes of largely what you see is the water, their permeability, erodibility is different, vegetation cover becomes important. Sharp divides typically develop on poorly vegetated, impermeable and easily eroded surfaces, because these are soil soft materials, they can get eroded easily. Then mass wasting is influenced by sediment characteristics like grain size, sorting, angularity. So if you look at this particular image, what you see here, this is one of the images which is developed in playa sediments. Now remember, these are softer sediments, so how does it look? These streams have now gone through, these gully erosions have taken place, these slopes are there, these important slopes are at different level, and in between them there are different slopes. So these are further etched. So what is here is that this kind of shape is large because of the material which is part of the geology, as we said, derived from the rock structure, which is now soil. So soil slopes are important as geological structures. Now the fourth most and very important factor is climate. How it controls the important slope, remember now, because in different regions you have different kinds of climate. So climate is largely about temperature, precipitation, humidity, and its control on various flora and fauna. So it controls the intensity of the weathering that we have already known. So chemical weathering, physical weathering, biological weathering, these are now the first important things that is governed by climate. And then finally, when they have weathered rock material, they tumble down the slope. Gradually it leads to the back wasting of slope, various kinds of erosion. So in arid landscape lacking vegetation, fluvial erosion is quite effective. Then generalizations regarding the effects of climate, that is important. So what you see here is humid climate, slope form is controlled by process acting on these regoliths, these withered rock materials. Slopes tend to be transport limited. Now because there is a humidity, there is a water content, so slope will depend upon the transportation factors. Now in arid area there is difference. So this is what you see in humid areas and this is what you see in the arid areas. Clearly difference kind of slopes are there. So you see weathering condition is limited, bedrock is very hard. So these kind of structures you see, these flat topped structures, these are known as the mesas, and these are the flat plateau kind of areas. If they are very pillared structure, they are known as buttes. So these mesa and butte structure are very famous in arid, semi-arid areas. That's where the climate control also becomes important. Now further, the fifth factor is the local natural, apart from that the anthropogenic activity as well. So what are those factors? Proximity to a stream, shoreline. So remember, if there is a stream or shoreline, there will be a different kind of slope because it will have an impact. Then activity of human being, that we already know, that is important. Construction activities and other activities. Then rate of uplift and incision. This is related to the local relief changes, if there is an avalanche happening, if there is a landslide happening, if there is an earthquake happening because of which there are lots of landslides triggered. So it will change the nature or the angle of the slope. So if you have to describe the slope, there are different ways of describing. One of them is with angles. So with changing angle, how you name the slopes, you can remember this. You can pause the video here and you can actually one by one you can note it down. When it is 0 degree, then what we call it as plane. 0 to 30 slightly sloping, 2 to 5 gently inclined, 5 to 15 strongly inclined, 15 to 25 steep, and then 25 to 35 very steep, 35 to 55 precipitous, and 55 and greater vertical. So these are various kinds of classifications on the basis of angle of slope that determines its gradient. So they have been differently classified, and you can remember this according to your need or according to your particular description that you want to fit in. So that is where it is important. Now, the next part of this session is the slope models. So we are not going to just learn about Davis, Penck and King, which we have already done in details in the previous lectures, but today we are also going to look at other models, that is Ellen Wood's model, Strahler's model and Dalrymple's model. So let's understand the slope models by various geomorphologists and geologists. Let's understand the first three, which we have already discussed in detail. So a little bit here as well. So Davis model of cycle of erosion. This is what we already know. So this is structure, process and stage. So upper slope weathers and erodes at faster rate. So there is a progressive decline of slope angle that happens. Penck's model of landform development was about parallel retreat of slope, and there was important that there was a ratio between endogenetic and exogenetic process that shapes it. And then King's model was slope replacement theory, that is about retreat of slope. So one slope was now retreated and it was replaced by the next one. That is what we know as the slope replacement theory under pediplanation theory. So remember, King accepted this model of particular slope, and remember, crest is the top part, then you have a free face, then you have a debris slope, and then you have a pediments. So this is what we learned in the slope replacement, that is pediplanation theory, and it was given by Wood in 1942, which was accepted by King. And remember, the element of these slope are these four elements: number 1, number 2, number 3 and number 4. So these elements are what? The waxing slope, the free face, the debris or talus slope, and the pediments. When these debris join together, so this is called pediments. So these are the important features that we have already discussed in previous sessions. Now, some features related to this. Now let's understand what is this mesa, what is this butte, and what is this pinnacle, and where it is formed. Remember Penck's idea as well as L.C. King's idea of parallel retreat of slope. So remember this example of Colorado Plateau where you find these flat topped buttes. So these are the buttes what we see here. Then you have tabular hills called mesas. So these kind of tables, right? These are longer tables. So these are called mesas, and these are pinnacles which are singular, this kind of sharp rock structures, rock pillars. These are called pinnacle. So this is important as we see here scarp retreat happening and parallel retreat happening here. So what happens? The tabular form, which is yet to be converted into this butte, and further it converted into pinnacle. So this is gradually happening with time. If you see, first there is mesa, then there is butte creation, then there is pinnacle creation. So you can remember as MBP, right? So MBP is the sequence of mesa, butte and pinnacle that was discussed according to the previous slope development theories by Davis, Penck and L.C. King. Furthermore, there is another feature that we need to learn, that is called rock cities. And what are these? Depending upon the mesomorphology and the degree of its dissection, penultimate stages may include classic buttes. And these are what you see here is all those classic buttes are together in this particular forest kind of system. So what you see here is lots of rocks together, and these isolated crags, what we say together, is known as what we say is rock labyrinth or rock cities. So there is a labyrinth, a floor, a particular hall which is dominated by these tall buildings. So remember, this is another important thing. This is another analogy with the cities. So all cities with high skyscraper buildings, right? So this is not skyscraper building, rather than these are rock cities. That's why they are known as rock cities or rock labyrinths. They are formed because of the same process that we have already learned in the slope declination, slope changes, slope development. So remember that feature. Now coming to the fourth one, which is Alan Wood 1942, the 4-unit slope model. What we already know that this model was accepted by the concept of L.C. King as well. So this 4-unit slope is best developed on a high initial primary slope. That is important, right? And this is what we see in the diagram. So upper convex segment, this is the convex segment. Then there is a free slope that we say cliff face. Then there is a straight segment. This is called straight segment here. And then there is a concaving happening. So this is convex and this is concave. So this is what we observe in the slope classification of Wood. So the process of weathering would push back the cliff. So what is happening? This cliff must have been till here earlier. So what is happening? Weathering happened and it kept on removing the material, and now this is the current situation. So this is what we talk as the weathering process, and further enabled by erosional processes. So Wood regarded the foot of the scarp as the local base level. Now here is the catch, that this particular foot of the scarp is known as the local base level, and it was coined by the Alan Wood's classification of the units of this particular slope. Now let's talk about the Strahler's view. So Strahler, another geomorphologist, he calculated mean maximum slope angle. Now he talked about the measurements, he talked about the quantification, he talked about the mean measurement or slope angles measurement in the study area. So what was the argument of Strahler? He said that if there is not much deviation from the mean slope angle, it means in an area, if most of the slope are very close to this mean slope, it basically means they have same kind of development. Their rate of evolution must have been in a same way, in a steady way. So that is what we talk here, that remember the development of these slopes at approximately the same angle because of this particular reason. What is that reason? That there was a steady and efficient removal of this particular slope material. So steadiness was the factor. That's why the concept here comes that such slopes are in delicate state of equilibrium. Equilibrium between what? Between the uplift, that is the tectonic endogenetic process, and the exogenetic process, the removal part. So there is an equilibrium between these two. So according to Strahler, in 1950 this concept was given. So under the equilibrium, slope maintain an equilibrium angle proportional to the channel gradient of the drainage system. So remember the channel gradient of the system, that is the particular force and at particular angle by which it keeps down cutting and lateral cutting. This cutting as well as the slope, in between these two, there is an equilibrium established. So remember what happens, and are so adjusted to permit a steady state to be maintained by process of erosion and transportation. So this steady state, this equilibrium between the cutting and this uplift is maintained by the rate of this erosion and transportation, and that is prevailing under these conditions of climate, vegetation, soil, bedrock, initial relief. All these things play an important role in the maintenance of this equilibrium. So there is this equilibrium of slope angle. So this is what was given by Strahler. And finally, the last important, the most modern concept was given of this slope model by Dalrymple and others in 1968, and they divided it into 9-unit slope model. So 9 units of a slope. So what do you observe? Interfluve, then seepage, convex creep slope, fall face, transportational mid slope, colluvial foot slope, alluvial toe slope, channel wall, channel bed. So there are 9 terms that you have to remember here. So you have to pause the video and you can make this diagram and mark it or label it, that which is what. Starts from interfluve, then goes to seepage slope. Then there is a convex slope, as we remember, this convex slope again in the Wood system as well. Then fall face, which is also called free face. Then you have transportational slope, this particular straight one. Then colluvial slope, the colluvial material is now here. And then alluvial particular zone. So alluvial toe slope after colluvial. This is particular place where alluviation happens. It means colluvial material is now degraded further. It is now further converted into smaller fragments and deposition. That's why it is alluvial. So colluvial, then alluvial, and then channel wall is there. So you see here this particular channel wall being developed here, and then channel bed is there. So this is what the river is there. So from river to this wall, the upper wall of the slope, this is which have been described in a cross section of a particular valley by Dalrymple's model, that is called 9-unit slope model. So when we have learned about concept and theories of slope development, so stay tuned, stay safe, and all the best wishes.